Hello, everybody. For every man who is fighting in the courts, or particularly fighting false allegations in the courts, there are usually many people around him whose lives are being affected. These battles are often centered around children. He may have a new partner or other family members and loved ones who can't believe what's happening to him. I want today to talk about the mothers. Many of these adult men have mothers, women who spent their lives caring for their sons, putting band-aids on knees, trying to keep their boys out of harm's way. And now they're forced to watch as their sons are being destroyed by a biased court system where women hold all the cards. I have with me now one of these mothers who happens to be a professional woman who has long experience with the social welfare system. I'm calling her Mary. We're going to be disguising her personal details and her voice because her son's legal battles haven't ended. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Bettina.
Very happy to have you here. I know it's always a tough call to talk about these very difficult issues.
Yes, quite right. It raises again the memory of the trauma, really, about the impact of this story. Yeah.
Mary, I mean, you've been pretty familiar with the court system. Your professional work meant you knew a lot about the whole social welfare system and what's happening in our courts, but you had no idea what men are really up against until your own son found himself facing this long battle in both the family court and now in the magistrate's court.
Yes, Bettina. I think for myself, I was astounded at how the system is so against men. My story, as you stated in your introduction, is a largely untold story. It's been overwritten and hidden. There are many good, honest men who are being abused by the way the legal system is currently operating.
Yeah.
I was astounded. I was disappointed. I was distressed, and that's nothing compared to how my son was feeling. So let down. I assumed it would protect my son and my grandchildren from harm, but it's not the case. It's not the case for him, nor for many good, honourable men like him. I've since realised the system is weaponised against men. Women can make all sorts of distorted and untrue statements that aren't sufficiently tested by the courts and can often lead to unjust outcomes. And they can keep repeating it, Bettina, over and over. Yeah. It's now open to any malicious, vindictive woman to use the system to destroy a man and use the children to punish him.
So, Mary, I want to go back and talk about what actually happened to your son. I'm going to call him Jeffrey. Tell me about his marriage.
Well, Jeffrey married young. They were both young. And I quickly realised that his young wife was unstable. She would create issues between him and his other siblings, as well as creating issues with his friends. I can only describe it as she isolated him by stealth. She gained his sympathy by telling him how her own family hated her and were awful to her. She detailed many instances of their transgressions against her.
Yeah.
And I guess, I wanted to feel safe with us. But
you were very supportive to her, weren't you?
Very, very supportive, supportive. And, I loved her very much. When the youngest son was 1 year old, they separated, in part due to her threatening to kill herself and the children. She had disclosed 2 detailed plans. And initially our family pulled out all stops to wrap supports around them, including, extended family, friends. We had a safety plan. But when she later threatened to kill my son as well, while he and my grandchildren slept, that was, we could no longer mitigate the risk because we couldn't stay there every night, and we would have to be on night shift. That's no way to live. It was a terrifying time for us all.
And that was
unpredictable.
So that started the legal battle, the family court battle, particularly around custody of the custody. In Australia, we now talk about residency of children. But essentially, it was who was going to be able to keep these children safe, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, it is.
But you went in, so your son went in telling the story about what was happening and the fact that the mother had threatened to harm the children, and often he wasn't believed when he went to lawyers, when he tried to get talk in court about these issues.
Correct. Actually, in fact, one of the lawyers said he was cavalier. He was being cavalier. My son was trying to protect his children, and it was a painful process because, he loved his wife still, but he could not, the children were not safe. And the children can't protect themselves. My son's efforts to source legal representation was significantly difficult. He was told it would be easier if you were the mother. He was listened to with doubt. And as one legal rep said to him, to be honest, I didn't think you had a case, but it's now obvious you have. Now, the difficulty, he was told, is that you are the father. If you were the mother, it would be an open and shut case.
Yeah.
What do you make
of
that?
I mean, because he was a father going in, whereas if it had been the mother, say the father was threatening the children, everyone would have taken that very seriously, yeah?
Exactly. And it was not helpful for us to hear that time and time again.
Yeah. And so you had this battle in the courts with your daughter-in-law getting legal aid, your son having to pay for everything, having trouble finding lawyers who would represent him and believe him. And this went on, I think you said for up to 7 years, is that right?
7 years, yes.
Yeah.
7 years. There were documents that were subpoenaed by his legal team. He had about 3 different legal firms at different times. They dropped off for whatever reason, and also, the fees became unachievable.
He was paying out thousands and thousands, I assume, all the time.
Tens of thousands of dollars. Yes.
And he lost the family home. He couldn't keep up repayments.
Correct.
Yeah.
So his credit rating didn't recover. Hasn't recovered. And we had to pay out his car, to transport his children because he would have lost that as well. But yes,
did he manage to keep up his job during that process?
He did, but it was very heavy. It was very heavy going. So he actually retrained. He retrained so his job would allow for him to have the school holidays, or more school holidays, really. But yes, it has been very, if he had been able to stay, if he'd stayed in his job, he was very good at it. He actually had a very good, he had a very bright future in his job. But,
he had to.
It has broken him, really.
And in the end, okay, we have a court battle for years and years where his ex-wife is making all these allegations, which then he had to fight all the time. But eventually he was given custody of the children. So he was ultimately believed at that point. Is that right?
Yes, he was believed in the end because the documentation that was subpoenaed clearly outlined a very troubled background of her. Her background was very troubled.
Even before they were married, as a young woman.
Yes, I'm talking teenager. Which obviously when they met, we knew nothing about all of the history.
Probably you think it's a borderline personality disorder, some psychological condition like that.
Yes.
It's at the heart of this,
Yes. But there's that, but it's also the maliciousness.
Yeah.
There's also the vindictiveness.
Yeah. Which can be part of that syndrome, of course.
Yeah.
And so during this court battle, she also makes allegations against you and your husband.
That's correct. She made allegations that we were domineering and controlling of her, and that she was afraid of us. I was absolutely stunned. I was torn between laughing because it was so ludicrous and crying that she would say something like that of us. We provided her with love and support, and I would always buy her a charm for her bracelet, at important events like the birth of the children, and I encouraged her to graduate, so I bought her the little a graduation symbol. She ended up withdrawing the application on the day of the hearing. But by that time, we were nervous wrecks. We were absolutely nervous wrecks, to the point that my husband and I had agreed before all this, when I started seeing things that chinks in the whole relationship, that he not change nappies or bath our
So
grandson.
you'd be caring for the grandchildren, and you felt always vulnerable. Yeah.
I felt that, yes, my husband was very vulnerable. So I was fearful of her capacity to make spurious and false allegations. That would have destroyed. It had a significant impact on my husband, but it would have destroyed him.
Yeah.
And I really, I really don't want to think about it had that happened, because it's not a good ending. It would not have been a good ending. He would have been destroyed.
Yeah.
I
mean, so during this whole court process, there were lots of allegations that surfaced. Crazy stuff came out that would then eventually, some of which would get, the judges would decide that the stories didn't hold up. Your lawyers would manage to have her stories refuted, that sort of thing. There was this ongoing process for years and years. It's a bit of a confusing picture, Mary, but essentially, so it took really 7 years for your son to get residency awarded by the court. But over that period, he had more care of the children. The court was acknowledging that the mother was a risk to the children, giving her supervised contact and at one stage you actually involved in providing that supervision. Is that right?
That's right, Bettina. I did provide supervision. Every weekend I provided 4 hours of facilitated contact for them, between the children and the mother. It was a huge commitment, one that I made for the children's well-being and development as well.
You're right in the thick of it. I mean, it's interesting because clearly she must have trusted you at one point.
She did.
And the fact that she agreed to do the supervision. Yeah.
And
then she turned around and made allegations against you. Yeah.
That's right. Her relationship with her mother is estranged. It's very estranged, and she didn't trust her mother, and actually, in her words, hated her mother. So her trusting me was more to do with that there wasn't anybody else, that she didn't really have friends or people she wanted in her life. So I was it.
Oh, you were it, and then she trusted you at one point to provide the supervision when she was having access to the kids, and then turned on you too. I mean, which is part of a pattern, obviously, in the way she relates to people.
And then we had to get over that, because I had to keep providing support.
Yeah. And so after all this battle, and then finally you get custody, your son gets custody, gets residency of the kids, and it seems to settle down. And then the latest turnabout is you've got your son has had a violence accusation made against him. Yes,
he has. Well, she's applied for an interim intervention order against him.
Yeah.
And of course, the way the system works is that that can be made against him and served on him without him actually being served with a summons. So the person's not aware. He wasn't aware, not even aware that it actually had occurred. So she goes along to a magistrate's court, and she alleges that he's been violent. You don't need any evidence, of course. And the intervention order is put in place, and then only then did you discover this is all going on. That's correct. Actually, and how we discovered was because she had withheld the children. So because there's a family court order, a federal family court order, and she didn't return the children. And when we tried to find out, a legal way of having police to go and pick up, help us with getting the children, he was served with the orders.
So she
He
and
was
then,
very
and that's the
influential.
whole point. I mean, that's one of the issues that's coming out in the family law inquiry that Pauline Hanson is essentially promoting the fact that we
Yes.
have this, the family court system being hijacked by intervention orders. Because if you make an allegation of violence, it totally overrides arrangements such as custody arrangement, sort of custody arrangement you had, doesn't it?
Exactly. It suspends. The the magistrate's court order, and it's nationwide. Can suspend the family court order, a federal court order.
Yeah.
And
And
that's it.
that's the extraordinary thing. You know, here we have this long history, which is proven in the family court through the fact that your son gets residency of these kids, that this is a woman who's disturbed, who essentially wasn't trusted to be given full-time care of the children. And you could go along to a magistrate's court and make a totally false allegation against him, and she is believed, isn't she?
She is believed, and she didn't have the federal court order with her.
Mm-hmm.
Why would she? So the magistrate didn't see it.
Yeah.
The first time the magistrate saw the court, well, the first time the magistrate's going to see the federal court order is when my son presents it.
Yeah.
So I found that actually, I can't think of the word now, but
how about gobsmacking?
Yeah. Well, I found it negligent. Yeah.
Oh, negligent. That's what happens. That it is this is the violence card. This is the power of this allegation. This long fought for residency of the children gets put aside. The children stay with their mother until the outcome of this current allegation of violence is determined. And it's just extraordinary that this is happening.
It is extraordinary. It's it's unbelievable.
So the kids are now with their mother. The mother encourages the children to contact their father. If he answers the phone, if he says, agrees to see them, he breaches his order and is liable to be sent to prison. I mean, it's so dangerous for men in these situations.
It is very, very dangerous. And yeah, she was actively encouraging my son to contact the children, sending him text after text, 15 on one day, and phone calls that he didn't answer. She wanted him to ring her. She wanted him to ring the children over and over again. She would send these messages and voice messages, and he couldn't answer them and he couldn't reply. And then she got the children to actually send her messages, my son messages to contact them, and that mum wanted to speak to them. My son couldn't do anything because there is also so much confusion around a federal court order and a state court order. So the police weren't even clear about what he could do or couldn't do. So one police officer was telling him, you can ring her. And the other police officer said, if you ring her, you will be charged with a criminal offence. Yeah,
because you're breaching the violence order. That's what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet she will never get. She will not get in any way any charges brought against her for doing that. No.
So here you have your son who still owes considerable sums of money for having financed all that legal, the family court battle, and now he's facing further issues with dealing with this potential criminal charge. The children have gone back to the mother, so he's now having to pay child support through the child support agency for that.
Yes.
Yes. The toll on his life and his finances must be just, let alone the emotional toll, it's just extraordinary, isn't it?
It is. I can't believe that. That I think the court or the interim intervention order was served. 2 days later, he had the child support agency contact him and saying, "This is the amount of money you will be paying weekly."
Because she managed to get custody back through using this violence order.
Yes.
Where's this all going to end, Mary? I mean, I suppose that's the thing that must just haunt you. How are you ever going to stop this malicious woman taking action against your son?
I don't know where it's going to end. I really don't. Sorry, I've just gone quiet because it's such a, I don't
Terrible
know.
question.
You know,
I know.
well, you know, it's sort of like, you know, how long's a piece of string?
Yeah.
Using that terminology. How long's a piece of string? You know, this will keep going because I feel that, well, and I believe it. You know, she's capable. She's so unpredictable. She's so unpredictable. She's predictable, actually. So, you know, she can make up anything from now till the day I die.
Yeah. Or he dies.
Or he dies.
And that must be such a fear for you, your vulnerability of your son. How does he keep going in the face of this?
That's exactly right. And I have become aware. Well, he's losing his hair for one. You know, he's a young man. He's losing his hair. You know, my beautiful boy with a full head of hair.
Yeah.
You know, this man is used to be so, you know, happy and you know, he plays with a straight bat. He's a kind person. You know, I can be a bit fiery. He's not that. And to see him just be pummeled into the ground with all this, I worry about his mental health. He assures me it's fine, but what I have seen is he's not the happy, relaxed, you know, man that he once was. The joy has been ripped out.
And you must worry terribly about your grandchildren too in the middle of all of this.
I do worry about them because, you know, what is this showing them? What is she showing them about how men are treated?
Yeah.
You know, this is going to affect their future relationships. This is going to affect them significantly. She can't see that because it's all about her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, Mary,
I don't know.
I'm so happy. I know it's a very distressing story for you to tell publicly, and I'm sure many people listening will appreciate this. And what excites me is that I've had so many women, particularly just recently. I've always had mothers talking to me about what's happening to their sons, but I've just had a little flood of mums getting in touch with me. Women like you whose sons are dealing with family court battles, and also women whose sons are dealing with rape accusations on campus situations and, you know, other social situations as well. And you're one of the women who's just, what's really exciting for me is that there's a group of women, including you, Mary, who are going to set up a new website for mothers of sons. I'm going to put information about this on my website, telling people how to get in touch with your group. What I think is really important, I'm delighted you've decided you're going to have some closed forums, some opportunity for women in your situation to be able to talk to each other privately through this website you're setting up.
We need a safe space to talk. Us mothers need a safe space to talk, so we can share our grief, our ideas, so we can give each other, help each other through this, to have courage. You know, we are women who have been through hell and back because our sons have been to hell. So, you know, we I think definitely the forum, we need this. Us mothers need this. We have no one else to talk to.
And I think, you know, the really sad thing is you can tell the stories of what's happening to men and people might listen to you because you're women, because you're mothers, and they don't want to listen to the men. And that's why I think this is particularly important, this move you're making, as you say, to give an opportunity for you to talk to each other, but also to spread the knowledge, the experience you've gained through dealing with the system, to give advice to women. What happens if your son's been accused of rape? How do you deal with this? What advice do you have, do the women in your group have for a woman in that situation? What advice do you have for a son facing a violence accusation? How does he deal with that in court? How does he self-represent in court? I think there's a lot of information you should be able to pull together. And I'm really delighted this is going to be happening. And anyone who's watching this who'd like to come on board and join your group, I think it's not going to be just mothers, isn't it, Mary? Eventually you want to open that up to sisters and, you know, people who have men in their life they're worried about, who are dealing with all of this.
Yes, that's right. It will be open to you know, to sisters and you know, other women in men's lives who are facing all these, and you know, whose mothers may have passed away or whose mothers are not around for whatever reason. You know, it's really important that you know, eventually it'll be open to a bigger audience of men, of, you know, supporting men in these circumstances.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we have it. Mary, I'll be sending all the people who contact me on to you and your colleagues who are involved in this new team. But thank you very much for talking to me today. And I'm sure many people will really have enormous sympathy for you in what you've gone through and what your son is dealing with. Thank you again.
Thank you, Bettina. I really appreciate the time, and you know, it's wonderful talking to you. And yes, let's move forward with the group. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for supporting me on my YouTube channel. I've got growing numbers of subscribers, which is really exciting. If you'd like to support me financially, go to my donate page on my website. Thanks a lot.